wanted to make this video for three reasons. Two small ones and one big reason. The small reasons being number one, as I was uploading videos to my YouTube channel, the video titles were getting bigger and longer, and I wanted to essentially make one video where I define what Islamic design actually means, and then I don't have to talk about that ever again. So if you want to know what Islamic design means, this will be the video that you have to refer to. Second reason is this is not designed for Muslims or for the Muslim community. The way Islam is talked about in the Quran and in the Seerah or in the Sunnah of all the prophets is that this is the most natural way of life. Not just natural, but the most universal way of life. Think about all the prophets before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were all practicing Islam, but you don't think of it that way because even in the Quran, Allah says that all of these prophets submitted to Allah. Okay, now that's the meaning of the word Islam. However, in the postmodern world, right, the world that we're living in today, Islam is an identity that's built on superficial layers. Okay, so these are people who have these rituals, these holidays, these rules, and so on and so forth. Okay, that is what Islam is all about in the postmodern world. So when I use the word Islamic, okay, it makes it like this something exclusively for some group of people. What it's supposed to be universal. There's also other things that you can imply from this reason. By that, here's one thing I can share about that. So when I say the word Islamic design again, the word Islamic implies an ideology. Okay, it does not talk about what you're designing. You're talking about what you're reasoning from, where you're reasoning from. I think it will be beneficial if we can spare this space for talking about what you're designing. So, for instance, app design, fashion design, building or architectural design. This space could be allocated for those things, in my opinion, and that way we could actually, efficiently make use of the space that we have. And we're not applying Islam superficially, we're applying Islam at a very operating system level, at a very hard level. Okay, what that means is, yes, it is guiding our practice, design practice, but in my opinion, that should not limit anybody from accessing Islamic design, especially to those who don't identify with this label of Muslim, especially when Islam is designed as a source of universal guidance. Okay? So, that said, I want to go on to the most important reason for making this video. And that actually ends the whole video itself, which is, what is Islamic design? I have not actually clarified this in any of my previous videos. Like, how does it compare? How does it benefit you? Well, first things first, what is design from a secular lens? Well, I don't think a lot of people have defined design from an Islamic lens. So this space, at least at the time of me recording this video, is new. So what that means is all of the definitions that you will see from all the more accomplished designers out there, even Muslims, would essentially define design from a secular view for the most part. So what is it? Here's an example. Okay, here's a product, and essentially what this is it's actually a torch. Okay, if I press this button over here, it turns on the light, and then if I press it again, it turns out it projects a much harsher light, and I press it again, it projects a much harsher light. Okay, this is a product that was designed, and I can close this and I can open it whenever I like. Now, I took a very simple product just because I can cover that in this video. I'm going to give you also another product. Okay, this is essentially your headphones. I don't want to open this up. The reason is because if I open this up, my recording would mess up. Okay, it would start changing the whole mic device. But this is essentially a wireless headphones by OnePlus. Now, what do you think about these products? You think these are good products or a bad product? How would you, judge this? You would essentially judge this on the basis of design. Now, some of you guys would jump up and say, no, it's not design that is everything. Well, that's the thing, okay? Not all of you will define design in the same way. For many people that are outside of the design discipline, design essentially means aesthetics, essentially the way it looks. And that tells a great deal about how people think about design in general within and outside of the design industry or the design space. And that is just about how things are organized, okay, how things are put together. And that's at a very material or at a very surface level. That's all that design is, okay? The way you design in a secular world is you go out into the world, you see what people are doing. Okay, so they're trying to do this task and you're trying to do that task. You essentially get involved in the process, say, hey, I'm going to help you do your job much faster, in a better way, in a more easier way, whatever that is, in a cheaper way. And then you design the solution and then you get paid. That's what design is from a secular lens. Now, I want to make it absolutely clear again here that Islamic design here is not about design that is halal or design that wants to make things permissible. I am not a Sharia compliance expert, and I don't define Islamic design as anything that is halal. There's, a lot of things in the modern world, in the secular world, that are halal and they're not designed from an Islamic worldview. And it's totally okay because there are lots of things that are designed by, people who don't identify as Muslims, but they're totally acceptable, by the Quran and the Sunnah. Well, even the Sahabas or the prophets used, things, spoke to people that did not, identify as Muslims. That in the modern world, the way that we have defined ourselves as being Muslim is that we have taken certain things that Allah has talked about as an action, as a verb, and we have, sort of nominalized it or made it a noun. So when Allah talks about Isa alayhi salam or Ibrahim alayhi salam or, Yaqub alayhi salam all being Muslims, Allah is talking about them submitting to the command of God. They were doing whatever God instructed them to do at that instance of time. Whatever is the instruction, they were grateful people. Now, we have, essentially labeled ourselves as Muslims, but we don't practice what Allah is talking about, or what Allah has instructed us. Now, here goes this whole confusion. This is where people come in and start, I can see this problem. Let me define what Islam is. Let me define what Muslim is. So a Muslim is, has these properties. So if you don't fit in these properties, then you're not a Muslim. Okay? I'm not saying you that there's no lines. The problem is that people are coming in and they're defining, who's a Muslim and who isn't a Muslim from a juristic or a jurisprudential matter, like Sharia matter. But we're not taking into consideration, who is a Muslim from a spiritual lens. Now, what does spiritual lens mean? Well, it is highly possible that I will consider somebody to be a Muslim in this world, and in the hereafter, which is all that matters, that person will be raised up as a non-Muslim. It's highly possible that you'd see someone as being sinful or not even a Muslim, and then when you go on the day of judgment, that person happens to be, a wali or a friend of Allah. All right? And this is from a jurisprudential matter. In the time that I'm recording this video, okay, nowhere on the planet Earth does Islamic system exist. Okay, nowhere does Islamic law in its raw form actually exist. So if you're going to talk about Islamic jurisprudence, that's going to be beneficial in certain areas. When we are designing from an Islamic, when I say we're designing from an Islamic point of view, I'm talking about from a Islam as in that direction, Islam as in the deen, okay, the purpose, Islam. Now, the purpose or the deen informs the Sharia, okay, it inspires the Sharia. Now, I heard Iqbal Nasim, one of the ex-CEOs of, the National Zakat Foundation in the UK. He gives this example. Imagine this building, and you're part of the project to, build or design this building. Now, instead of talking about the foundations or, the pillars and everything, you're now talking about what should be the color of the curtain or the color of the tinted glass on the building. Now, are these things unimportant? No, these things are important. However, there's a time and place for that. Okay. Right now, when we're talking about Islamic design, we're talking essentially about what should be the guidance. Okay. What should be the purpose of the things that you're designing? And that is inspired from the Quran and the Seerah. So, what is the purpose of Islamic design? Look, anything that we're designing in the secular world, we're just assuming that whatever the user wants to do or whatever it's purchasing for, it's the right thing. Okay? If the user is willing to pay you money, that's it. Okay? You can make that thing and profit out of it. Now, some of you guys might come in here and say, no, as Muslims, we don't actually go and build haram things or buy haram things or design haram things. So, where why shouldn't that be called Islamic design? Well, the reason why it shouldn't be called Islamic design is because on the spiritual side of that philosophy, it's not Islamic. Okay? It is designed for the purpose of fulfilling man's desires or women's desires, women's ambitions. And that women or man's ambitions and desires are not oriented towards God or divine pleasure. When is the last time you went to the office and people talked about, how are we going to allocate these funds to, promoting welfare, or how can we promote justice in this? How can we solve problems that this brother or this sister is going through in this particular place? We don't talk about those in the modern workplace because that is not the objective of, secular design. Now, there are, again, like I said, these things can be halal in the sense that you can take that money and unofficially allocate money for, an Islamic objective. But not everything in Islam can be done individually. Now, when the dominant philosophy is un-Islamic, it's only a matter of time till people forget the purpose of you doing that thing. For instance, let's say you were giving X amount of money to this institution, okay, that is essentially, let's say, helping people under debt, like offering interest-free solutions. Now, if you were investing in this company or this organization that is essentially taking people away from a debt-based society or a debt-based system, then essentially you're taking people closer to God. Okay? Not just because now they have more time to offer salah. Okay, that's one of those. But because now, essentially they don't have to serve or, be compelled to serve in this haram system. Okay? Now, over time, what happens is your children, if the system is going to pass on, if the dominant system is not that, people will not remember or recall what is the purpose of doing this. And then you might have the same face or form, but now your children want recognition, right? So instead of seeking divine acceptance, now people are wanting, people's acceptance. And this is something that happens, pretty normally, even in Muslim societies today. And you can actually witness that in many of the Muslim non-profit organizations today. Now, in the secular design discipline, there is no accountability. Okay, accountability comes from the people. Okay, you're selling to. So if the customer catches you and asks you, "Hey, I asked you for this thing. Where is that?" Now, if they happen to catch you for that flaw, then okay, you're caught. Otherwise, if you're really smart, you can get away with, a lot of things. And it's pretty normal today. In the postmodern society, the society that we're living in today, you do anything to get press coverage. Okay. You can tell partial truths to get eyeballs on your product. You can hide flaws, but also make yourself look really good in the sense you describe all the flaws in like font size 2 pixels or 3 pixels. And what that does is you have a bunch of people who get confused between what is true and what is not true. There are lots of people who know how to peddle false news with a lot of confidence today. Why? Because there's no day of judgment. There is no God in this picture. If you take away the concept of day of judgment, if you take away the concept of, Allah, like, and also who is Allah, right? If you think about it from this new age spirituality or other religions or secular worldview, God is some kind of thing or some kind of this force in the air. That's not how Allah describes Allah. Allah defines himself. He talks about who he is. And he gives us, enough information to recognize him. Even if we cannot see him, he gives us so much information. You don't need to, philosophize about, oh, maybe God looks like this, maybe God looks like that. What he looks like is not important because he's beyond us, beyond our creation. He looks and he is nothing like anything we have ever seen or witnessed, or anybody has ever seen or witnessed. So he's beyond us. But God has given his attributes for us to essentially humble ourselves. Okay? And if you go and reflect on these attributes, you understand what I'm talking about. Now, when you don't have these concepts, you're kind of free to do anything, and at the same time, you're essentially corrupting the whole balance that God created on this earth. Allah says in Surah Al-Rahman, he talks about this concept of balance, that we have established balance, right, on the face of this earth, and don't disturb this balance if you're going to do that. And in another surah, Allah talks about how corruption has spread in the lands and in the seas. Oh, well, what's happening to the seas? Interestingly enough, right after that, he says, with what they have earned through their hands. Okay? Now, Allah actually revealed some of these corruption in this life, so that you can see, you can reflect, and you can come back to the right path. And that's what my channel is dedicated towards. It's sort of explaining to you what that right path looks like visually, not just through like the mid journey images that I occasionally post here, but actually through videos and through live sessions, inshallah, or through the books that I intend to sort of publish. The whatever I am going to start, whatever I'm going to do, inshallah, through this Ihsaanic project, all of this is aimed at doing one thing. Okay, that thing is to explain essentially to the best of my, and hopefully one day with my team's abilities, explain how Allah has designed this earth and how Allah expects us to design this planet and leave this planet in a better way than we found it, because Allah has designed us for that very purpose. Inni ja'ilun fil arzi Khalifa. That we are all stewards on the face of this earth. We steward. We're essentially caretakers of all of the creations of God. Now we can use this creation to get closer to God or away from God. And there's this binary. Okay, everything is not abstract. Look, the way the world is designed right now, there in this postmodern world that we're living in, It seems as though we have infinite choices, and people are getting anxious, people are directionless, people are purposeless. In this kind of world, what we want to do in this with this project is essentially expose that binary to you in a way that can resonate in this time and age. Right? That's what this whole project is about, and we're gonna do that through through multiple projects. Some are going to be in the form of videos and all of that. So say subscribe to this channel. There's going to be so much that I intend to talk about through this channel, and also through my Instagram. There's the Instagram page that I have. Be sure to follow there for more information as we go along. With that said, I hope to see you in the next video very soon. Assalamu alaikum.